Hello, Mr. Maldonado. Can you hear me, sir?
Testing 1, 2, 2, 3.
I can hear you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Perez looks so lonely in there.
Now there's 12 other people in here.
Oh.
I see Lorraine's hand. Is that Lorraine?
It's me.
Is it Raina?
Is settings on? It's on cool. Doesn't work too well, does it?
Dr. Murray, did you get my presentation?
Dr. Martin?
Yes, sir.
Did you get my presentation?
Yes, I did. Give me a signal when you want me to pull it up, okay?
I'm gonna put my finger out like this so you can see. Why did you pull me right here? What? You guys come here.
Uh-huh. We need it. We need to turn the screen a little bit that way.
That way. Don't leave it. Don't leave it. You get it back.
Oh, we're not.
Mr. Ortiz, do we have a quorum? Mr. Pettis, do we have a quorum?
Oh, yes. Yes, we do. Me and you and Dion and still have a couple of minutes for Emily.
Richard?
Oh, he's not over yet. Did you hear me, Dr. Guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Good go now.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order at 5:30. Let's stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Dr. Archambault,
Here. Here.
Emily Hunt Bailey. Richard Jones. Leon Sandoval.
Here.
Robert Ortiz.
Here. Adoption of the agenda tonight, Mr. Perez, your recommendation, any change?
Sir, good evening, Mr. President, Board, everybody that's on this evening. I recommend that we approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, with that, I need a motion.
Leon Sandoval, so move.
Garashambo, second.
Okay, roll call.
Dr. Guy,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Bailey. Richard Jones. Leon Sandoval.
Yes.
Robert Ortiz.
Yes. Motion carries. Adoption of the minutes, Mr. Perez, your recommendation.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, I recommend that we adopt the minutes of June 1st, 2021 as presented.
Need a motion?
Leon Sandoval makes a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
Garashambo, second.
Roll call.
Dr. Guy,
Yes.
No. So, here.
No, just call it for the minutes.
Then when they arrive, you have to put the time that they arrive.
Emily Hunt Bailey. Richard Jones. Leon Sandoval.
Yes.
Robert Ortiz.
Yes.
Call the name, right? Yeah, you
They're
don't
not
have
present
until they
until
get,
they get here, if they get here.
Oh,
then you can call the name.
Okay, recognitions, nothing tonight?
No, sir.
Okay,
Mr. President, no recognitions this evening.
okay, citizens to address the board, no citizens to address the board tonight. Presentations, Mr. Perez.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, Board, we have the advisory policies number 220 through 228. This is the first read for these advisories that next board meeting will be presenting again to see if the board might adopt them to go into our district policies. Ms. Salazar, do you want to just give a really brief overview of what these advisories are about?
Yes, sir. I'd love to. Good evening, board president and board members and everyone that's in attendance tonight. We have 8 advisories tonight. The first one is on staff ethics. The only thing that is changing on that would be our legal reference. We also have staff conduct, and that is being more specific as far as requiring timelines, who's designating and who's responsible for making those reports, how the reports are to be maintained. For professional staff hiring, where the change that is revised will be the policy permitting contract rescission and termination after the effective date of the statute. And that also follows on with the policy advisory number 223 with support staff hiring. And so those two go hand in hand, and it's the same verbiage that will be included in those. On our policy advisory GCFC professional staff certification, we have the changes of House Bill 128 that will be included. We have some language that are that's changing, and all applicants must swear or that they've never been investigated for certain things as far as their license certification or have any revocations or anything concerning their licensure. And so we also have our support staff certification that also goes hands in hand with our license certification on the CCFC, and they are supposed to just indicate that they have never been investigated on any misconduct. And on House Bill 128, it does contain some language in there as far as termination on page 338 and 39 and 40. And so I think that covers the gist of everything. The changes on our last advisory, the House Bill 128, the change of reporting persons from only licensed personnel will be changed to all school district personnel. And there's also going to be a training component applicable to all of those people that work with students or on campus.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
No questions.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I have no questions.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Guy.
No, he says he doesn't.
Oh, you-
I have no questions.
okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said you had one. Okay, with that, next presentation.
Okay. Yes, Mr. President, Board, the next item is partly that we do this, want to do this on a regular basis, and partly because we felt it was time that to give a little more in-depth look at the academic efforts that we have in our, you hear us talk a lot about our systems aligned learning system, and you hear us talk a lot about the professional development that we have going on in the district and how our instructional facilitators, coaches are working with teachers and so on. So we want to give another look at for the board's knowledge, give you an insight into what that looks like and the work that we're doing district-wide. And I think it's important at this point to realize where we started and where we're at this point. Because I have to acknowledge that there's been a lot of good work that's gone into this by the teachers, by instructional facilitators, and by the principals, and of course by the directors in the academic area. So a couple of years ago, there was not an aligned system, and there was not a cohesive manner in which we had standards focus, in which we had a standards-based assessment, quarterly assessment. We did not have a quarterly assessment actually. Now, moving up to today, 2 years later, we still have a lot of work to do, but we're moving forward steadfast with the mission of making sure that we have a standards aligned system with the standards focus, the assessment, and the examining student work, which is basically the pedagogy that goes alongside the three-legged stool, the way I like to look at that. We do know that this will make a difference once that all of these pieces are in place. We expect to see an increase in student performance. That will not happen until we solidify this and get all of these efforts to make a true solid change in the classroom, in which we know will happen. And that's what we're working on. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Sanchez.
Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Perez, members of the board. Dr. Martin, can you share your screen, please?
Is that what you're just drinking, Mark?
There's tea too, iced tea in the fridge.
Thank you.
Want some iced tea too?
Sorry.
Ms. Sun.
Go ahead, Dr. Martin.
Okay, so I'd like to start off with this part. Kind of tied to what I was just talking about, you know, a lot of the work has been in framing this up, making it, giving it a framework, and then working towards making it not only systematic, but systemic. In other words, we need to have regular processes and systems in place with the academic area. But eventually we want it to be like a systemic process where it's not when we do it or how we do it, it's what we do on a daily basis. And that's when it becomes systemic. But if you notice, this is a visual of just from a 10,000 foot view. Student is always in the center. Student learning is always our focus. And then the next layer, peripheral, the next layer around that would be the now, especially social and emotional well-being of our students is critical in order for student learning to take place. And the cultural and linguistic responsiveness is also critical in ensuring that student learning takes place. Without those, we're hindering any success in student learning. Another layer in this is our standard aligned system, which I just finished talking about. We have to have our definite curriculum, instruction, assessment, and interventions, and the processes and procedures that go within that. And then, of course, we all know this is all encompassed by having a safe and healthy learning environment, which is really that's very self-explanatory. It has changed the last year and a half, where our safety and healthy has really taken a different face, but we still realize that it's important. And again, we're still moving steadfast forward. Some of the key things that we think about in all of our work on a daily basis, and as we're working through the planning of academics, is to make sure we have clear expectations. And we work a lot with the expectations and the support idea. We have expectations are set and the support is provided by the instructional facilitators. And then parent engagement is another area that's critical. We always can do better with that. We are looking at some intentional activities at schools to ensure that we have a proper parent engagement, and that can always continuously improve. Excellence in teaching and leadership is also another critical piece in student learning. And that's gonna, we want to invest in that, because you'll see in our action items this evening. In order to have good teaching, good learning, we must have good teachers in the classrooms, and we must have good support staff at the schools. So we'll be talking about recruitment and retention in just a while. And then the values that we've talked about as administrators over the last 2.5 years is professionalism and respect. We had a lot of discussion in this area where we talked about a lot of different values. You can write pages of values, but the ones that keep bubbling up to the top that we all agreed on was professionalism and respect that we want to push in the district. So all of this is in support of our district goals and our board goals. And we have the academics, the excellence in teaching and leadership. We have the safety and safe and healthy schools. And then we have the parent engagement. So in essence, we are working hard to line up all of our efforts. Dr. Guy and I talk a lot about lining up the arrows. You know, if all the arrows are lined up, the chances at improving student performance are increased significantly. So that's the 10,000 foot view. And then as we listen to Ms. Sanchez, she'll be bringing it down to the classroom level.
So before we begin with our Q4 Illuminate data, I wanted to give an update on our extended year, our 10 days of the extended year for our 2 high schools. So Grants High School has 84 students who have earned or recovered credit or are in the process of recovering credit. And of the students that did not graduate in May from Grants High School, all but 3 will finish by the end of the summer, and the other 3 will return in the fall to finish next school year. For Laguna Acoma High School, 32 have recovered credit so far. And out of the 9 that did not graduate in May, 1 completed the requirements during extended learning. 1 is awaiting grades for dual credit, and the other 7 are currently in summer school. I think that's really good recovery for our high school students during that extended time. Moving along to our Q4 Illuminate data, I'm going to present a general overview, and in your packets, you'll find the data disaggregated by all of our subpopulations for the district. This graph right here shows the percentage of assessed all the way to the right. And so I know that we were trying to get the percentage of students that took the assessment up over the school year with the challenges that we had. And so I'm really, really proud of our kindergarten classes that we're able to get 98% of their students assessed for Q4. All of them are, with the exception of 6th grade, are 90 and above, which is awesome for what we were looking at in the 70s and 80s from beforehand. Kindergarten continuously is improving, and I want to commend them not only for having that percentage assessed, but also for having the percentage of proficient and advanced students. Something we need to keep in mind is kindergarten does have a lot of prompting and support with their students as they're taking these assessments. You'll see in 1st and 2nd grade that prompting and support goes away a little bit, and the students at the end of the year, especially Q4, are having to take these assessments by themselves. We have studied the assessment. We have studied all of our data. 4th grade struggled again with this assessment, and it went back to the rigor of the questions and the way that they were asked. A lot of the questions were asked in a way where they had to compare 2 different articles rather than just 1. And that's higher order thinking for sure. They also had to choose 2 correct answers rather than just 1. And so any wrong combination of answers counts the problem wrong. So we're looking at that as we vet assessments for the following school year. The next slide is a graph of the data that's in the table in the slide before. And so you can see that the gray line at the top is the percentage of students that's assessed. And the green is the proficient or advanced students. And then the yellow bars are the students that are nearing proficient. So we look at these to see which grade levels we're having a little bit of difficulty in and which ones we really need to focus on, which ones we've seen big improvements, and which ones we've seen big improvements from the nearing proficient to proficient and advanced. And this is kindergarten through 6th grade for English language arts. Right here. Go ahead, Dr. Martin. This is quarter 4 for math for Illuminate. The percentage of students is to the right. That is far below basic, nearing proficient, proficient, and advanced. So 81% of our total population of students from kindergarten to 6th grade was assessed, or to 11th grade was assessed. So this is all of our math students. And the number of proficient and advanced students has risen throughout the school year this year. Go ahead. And this is the graph showing that same information. Go ahead, Dr. Martin. So this is a math down to the 1st through 6th grade level. You can see that the percentage of assessed once again rose quite a bit. Kindergarten and 1st grade are doing very well in their math proficiency. The number nearing proficient for 2nd grade and up is a lot higher than it was before also. So we're moving those students to below proficient to nearing and to proficient. Go ahead. And here's the graph again showing the math data. The gray line at the top is the number of the percentage of students that were assessed.
I'm going to try and turn on the air conditioner.
Okay, I could speak louder. This visual right here really helps us to see the decline in the math scores as the grades go up. And so we're working really hard to fill those gaps using the multi-layered systems of support that we'll be putting into place this year, and our standards alignment to make sure that all of our teachers are teaching those foundational skills at the grade levels that they need to make sure that we don't have these gaps in the future. Here.
We have to keep in mind too that this is also a factor is prompting and support the kindergarten and 1st grade levels.
Right. This next graph is our English language arts Illuminate quarter 1 and quarter 4. So this is 3rd, 4th, 5th, and up. So this starts at 3rd because there was not an assessment at the beginning of the year for kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade. And so this one just shows the far below basic all the way to the advanced. And quarter 1 is in green and quarter 4 is in orange. And so you can see that using the alignment system that we had this year is proving to be successful. We're starting to align our students to where we're testing the standards that we're teaching that quarter. The teachers are getting used to it and the students are getting used to it. And in the coming year, you'll see up ahead a little bit, you'll see that it's tightening up a lot. Go ahead, Dr. Martin. This one is for math, and so this is also quarter 1 to quarter 4, and this is once again showing the alignment system and how we've increased the number of advanced and proficient students, even nearing proficient students from the beginning of the year until now. The next graph is going to show you quarter 2 versus quarter 4, because in quarter 2 we were able to assess our kindergarten all the way through 11th grade students. And so this one shows you that from quarter 2, even starting in quarter 2, we had a little bit more advanced than we did in quarter 1, but then the numbers that were nearing proficient, proficient, and advanced were a little bit higher there too.
Can I ask a question before you go on,
Please.
Mr. Perez? I know that you do these assessments at the end of each quarter. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Are there any preliminary or something that you can to show that maybe there's some students dropping rather than wait till the end of the quarter? What mechanisms do we have in place that will target those that need immediate help?
So what we're doing through our summer training, and I'll elaborate a little bit more during the presentation, but we're teaching our teachers and encouraging our teachers that are already doing this to continue to assess students daily. So assessing students by observation, by examining the student work that we'll show you in a little bit. That's a new protocol. And making sure that, number one, our assignments are aligned, our expectations are aligned with what the standards are, and then that the students are meeting our expectation with those assignments. So once our students are meeting those expectations, then we know right away whether they need intervention that day rather than waiting until the end of the quarter.
Okay, I like that idea only because we do have some students where they get too far behind, even say the middle of the quarter, and then they're continually playing catch up and get frustrated and defeated because they're so far behind already, even before the end of the quarter.
You're absolutely right. And that's why we're encouraging frequent and immediate feedback for our students and all of that formative assessment rather than just waiting until the summative assessment like this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So now I'm going to go into our district learning plan. And so this is what we're doing right now in the summer. So on Monday, yesterday, we kicked off our summer learning for teachers. And so our professional development started yesterday. This is our calendar for the summer, and you can see it's really, really busy. One of the sessions that we have is a 2-day session, and it's our district learning plan on the day 1 and our examining student work on day 2. And all of these sessions are being led by our instructional coaches, who are absolutely amazing. They're a very capable group. They are teaching all of the teachers this summer. So they've paired up and they've taken on different grade levels. And so yesterday we started with our 7th and 8th grade math. Today that session finished up. Tomorrow we start a 2nd and 3rd grade ELA and math. And then Thursday we start another one for 7th and 8th grade. And so we're very, very busy. And then on top of that, Dr. Martin has also offered SIOP trainings, 2 different SIOP trainings that are each a week long for teachers to sign up for. And so he got a really good response for that too. So our teachers are tired, but our teachers are very dedicated, and they're still learning over the summer.
Another question, are all the teachers familiar with the SIOP, or are you having to do a lot of hands-on training?
So a lot of our teachers have already been trained in SIOP through cohorts. And so a lot, in the past, it was new teachers and they would make new cohorts with SIOP. Now the SIOP has changed a little bit because of all of the technology that's been introduced in our virtual learning. And so that's changed a little bit. And with that change, we've offered it to everybody in the district again. And so Dr. Martin's opened it up to the whole district if they want a refresher, or if they just want some of the new strategies that are offered with John Konzik in order to do more of the virtual learning, more of the technology, enhanced learning, and that sort of thing. And so all of them are able to take it again, but a lot of our teachers, a big majority of our teachers are already trained in SIOP.
We want to continue to have our new teachers undertake SIOP when they sign up.
And so
Yeah,
even though
that was part of my it's going to be my next suggestion, to be part of your new teacher orientation is this SIOP training, because we take it for granted that some new teachers already know what to do when they come in. And speaking from experience, not all of us know these new buzzwords and new protocols. And so it's important that you make that part of your orientation session for the new teachers that are being hired.
we'll continue to have SIOP training be part of our new teachers training for sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Martin. So this is our district learning plan, and this is a guide for grade level teachers to focus their efforts on the desired outcomes for students. And so the DLP, as we refer to it, allows teachers to see what skills need to be taught to achieve the desired learning outcomes, as well as other elements of support. For example, in ELA, the support areas include the reading foundational skills, writing, language, vocabulary, and listening and speaking. This gives you an idea of what the inside of the DLP looks like. So this is a kindergarten ELA page. So at the beginning, you can see for Q1, the very beginning of the year is key ideas and details. And so their central focus at this point is questioning. And you'll see that there's 2 standards listed there. And that's where we're getting with prompting and support for kindergarten. And then there's some learning outcomes. And so the learning outcomes give the teachers an idea of what that might look like in their classroom. At the bottom, there's a notes page, and we encourage all the teachers to take notes here, to make notes as they teach, after they teach, and as they go through the examining work, student work protocol at the end. All of the reading foundational skills, the vocabulary skills, the listening and speaking, all of those play into every one of these pages in the district learning plan. And so you can see this is 9th and 10th grade ELA, and the format is the same as it was for the kindergarten. And so the key ideas and details also start off in the 9th and 10th grade. Their central focus is a little bit different. Now they're looking at inferencing rather than questioning. And you can see that they have to cite strong and thorough evidence to support the analysis of what the text says this explicitly. And so the language of those standards you can see goes way up for 9th and 10th grade, of course. But the 9th and 10th grade teachers also have the learning plan for all the way down to kindergarten, so they can reference how the students built from kindergarten all the way up to 9th and 10th grade.
One key thing to think about here is, as we work through this, our goal is to see that the teachers understand completely the standards in their grade level by quarter, so that they can know these standards inside and out. You hear a lot of districts and schools say, yeah, we're standards focused and we do the essential standards and all this kind of stuff. But it's only going to make a real difference if we make it, again, systemic. If we can get every teacher to understand not just what that standard is, but what are the elements, the criteria, what does it take for the students to really know that standard? So that's the depth that we want to get to, so that we're really digging in, and so that we stay focused and stay target on these standards. And the other key piece that I wanted to mention with these learning plans is a lot of work's gone into making sure that they're not only grade level organized, but they're also vertical organized. In other words, the 6th grade teacher can see what the 7th and 8th grade is going to do, and they can look in the 3rd grade teacher and so on. So it's in the most simple terms, it's organized so that everybody stays in their lane and gets really good at what they're doing in that section of their standards.
Max.
Another comment. Having Mr. Perez say that, I also think it's also important that we not work in our own little island that we do across the curriculum, because there's many things that some subject matter can follow through in another class, and so across the curriculum has been an old thing, and it's worked for a lot of years. So rather than work in our little island and just get one perfect at one thing, we should continue to push for everybody to get perfect across the board. Sorry, but it's just an opinion.
You're absolutely right. And so we've encouraged all teachers, all elective teachers, all of our science and history teachers, not just ELA and math teachers, to participate in these professional development sessions. And so all of them will eventually have a scope and sequence for their standards for their subject, but they will also have the writing and the reading and all of the foundational skills needed for each of their subjects as well. And so we are encouraging that.
Right now, we do have the NGSS standards for science, and the state is currently working on the social studies standards. So we want to see what theirs is going to look like, so we can make sure we line up with the state standards in social studies.
Max and Raina, can you hear me?
Yes,
sir.
Dr. Guy. Go ahead.
Go back to that screen. That one. Board members, the two statements there cite strong and thorough textual evidence. That is what the kids have to do. That's not what the teacher does. That's what the kid has to do. So just think about it, Dion and Ron and Emily, is that is very challenging for students. They must know what that word means, what the cite means. What does that mean? And what does textual evidence means? And how do you support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text? That is very challenging. And that is the kind of performance that must be demonstrated not only on paper, but also in oral academic conversation. So in other words, when teachers ask about this, the student must be able to orally do this. And the reason I'm mentioning this again is because I've seen this over many years. And I found that a lot of times it's very difficult for us to have our children really develop that mastery of this if they have not had experience with this in lower grades. And there is foundational work in lower grades for that same thing. So I would not be surprised in grades 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that this will also show up. So it's essential for those teachers to recognize that what they're doing in the lower grades has a bearing upon what that 9th and 10th graders is capable of doing. Then in addition, you've got English learners who are going to be challenged in trying to do what it says there, to inference, to arrive at an inference, and to cite evidence. That's difficult. And then students with disabilities also. We need to recognize that that the expectation is that they're going to master this too. And we know that we have our work cut out for us in trying to ensure that these students are capable of doing that. This is very important. Just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
And just to address Dr. Guy's concern, this is where we rely on the expertise of the teacher. And speaking from a teacher of those lower grades, I've seen this inferencing. I teach it till it's blue in the face, cite. We have race and we have ACE and we have all these things. So this is where we depend on our expert, and I'll call them expert teachers, to ensure that these ELA students, ESL students, special ed students understand the instruction. And so this goes back to the professional development to ensure that our teachers understand and know that sequence, because it is frustrating as a teacher to get a student who hasn't been introduced to that. So we have to rely heavily on our teachers and then the training that they're getting during their professional development. So I applaud any effort you're making in this current training sessions to alert our teachers how to be able to acknowledge that our students will understand the detailed work of inferencing and citing and textual even evidence. All of that is very new to a lot of students. And so if we can concentrate even on those explicit words, it'd be something that's very trainable to our teachers.
Yes, and the words and the discussion and the making expectations from these ideas, from these key ideas and details, from the central focus on every one of these. And so third grade is still questioning, fourth grade goes to inferencing. And so those kind of things are what we talk about during these sessions, to make sure that all of the teachers understand from which grade to which grade does it change. And you'll really see that in the next slide with the writing companion. And so I know you can't read this one, but I just wanted to show you for the format of it. The kinder first and second writing companion is very simple. And this entire document is written simply with intention. And so you can see that in kindergarten, they're asked to write complete thoughts, but not a sentence really until it's not called that yet, maybe at the end of the school year, but not at the beginning. And so all of these are expectations for the end of the school year. And first grade, it goes to multiple sentences. And then third grade, finally, they're asked to write a paragraph. So it's very developmentally appropriate for our students. 11th and 12th grade, I have it here, I'll show it to you. 11th, 10th, and then 11th and 12th is together, but that's where they're really, 10th, 11th, and 12th is really focused on responding to text. And so just like the last slide showed us with the 9th grade, the 9th and 10th grade where they were asked to cite explicit evidence and inferences. And so they're asked to do those things in the context of a text that they just read. And so responding to things, really getting them ready for the collegiate level or the next level writing. So something that Dr. Williams says to us often, and I think it really rang true with me, is that we're not in the business of building authors. We're in the business of making our students successful and writing and reading and speaking and in listening. And so all of those build our comprehension. And so making sure that our students really understand what they are reading and what they're learning, and they're able to express that in one way or another. And so that's how the writing companion is formatted. And on the next slide, you can see the kinder first and second page. Go ahead, Dr. Martin. Thank you. Kindergarten, write a complete thought. You can go back one. Kindergarten, write a complete thought, a noun and a verb. And then we talk about capitalizing and punctuating. And then we go on to multiple thoughts in first grade. And you can see the difference from first grade or kindergarten to first grade. And then from first grade to second grade, and how the complexity increases every time. And then if you go on to fourth grade, I think the next one that I'm showing is fourth grade. It really talks about writing cohesive paragraphs, talking about chronology, and making sure that their paragraphs just aren't a group of thoughts, but they make sense in that order. And then it goes to constructing ideas and things like that. So it gets very complex very fast, but that's why it's so important for the teachers to understand exactly what's expected of their grade level and staying within that grade level to make sure that there's mastery before they move on. So that's the writing piece. And then in addition to the entire district learning plan for English language arts, we give the teachers, go ahead to the next slide, Dr. Martin, a vertical alignment document. And so this allows teachers to see both for the L standards and the I standards, the literature and the informational, how the standards progress from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And so it might say with prompting and support in kindergarten, but that's dropped off in first grade, and then they have to ask and answer questions about details and text. And then they have to ask specific questions like who, what, where, when, and why in second grade, and so forth. So it's a really quick document to show the progression for the teachers for each of the standards. So this is several pages long, actually. Go ahead, Dr. Martin. So this shows you the district learning plan for math. And so we have the ELA document, and then we also have one for math. And the math shows the critical areas in the circle. And then to the right, it shows you the standards, what the central focus is and what the standard is. And it's all written out for you. That one might not be in your packet, but I have one right here.
I also think, excuse me, I also think that's important that you let the teachers know that they don't have to teach each standard alone, like 7.G.4. They can incorporate a lesson plan that has maybe 2 or 3 standards in it, or even a lesson from something that was already done before, so that they don't feel like, how am I going to do all these standards in one learning day or one quarter, when there's 30 some standards they have to address as a, I know the older teachers are going to feel like, that's just way too much, but the other ones will take 7G3, 7G4, 7G6 and incorporate it into one lesson. Then that way they don't feel bombarded with, like, they have to go teach each standard. It'll be combined in one lesson plan.
Right. And those are the conversations that they've been having. So, for example, yesterday we started the 7th and 8th grade math, and I was able to catch the end part of the day there yesterday, and their conversations were exactly that. This is a resource that I could use for this. And so we're presenting this plan to the teachers, and this is our guide. This is their plan. They have resources in the classroom that they can pull in order to teach these. And some of those resources are going to help them to teach 1 and 2 and 3 standards at a time. You're right. They don't have to be taught in isolation. Some of them lend themselves very well to be taught together. And so those are the conversations they get to have with their instructional coaches too.
And ideally, that conversation will happen in their PLCs after they've done, and you'll see in a few. And in examining student work, at a conclusion, when you find out what your strengths and weaknesses are, the teachers should work together and talk about what the next assignment's going to look like and which standard that's going to include for the next week. So that way, their time is well spent. They wouldn't have to have a PLC and then a separate prep planning time. But in an ideal situation, as we get better at this, the teachers should come out of their PLC knowing what that assignment for next week is going to look like, which standards are going to be targeted, and what the elements of that standard will be, and that'll help keep them on the same track as well.
In addition to their PLC conversations, every quarter, the coaches and I will have meetings with the grade levels. And so not just teachers from one school, but teachers from all schools in the district for one grade level will get together, and we'll say, these are the standards for this quarter, and this is what I plan to do. These are the resources that I found, and they can collaborate together, because sometimes at the smaller schools, they don't have a grade level partner to work with. And so we're looking at that for them. The district learning plans for math are kindergarten through 8th grade, and then we have Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry for our high school.
And I'd just like to answer the question on the chat.
Okay.
So, so the connection to the home and cultural experience with to these standards, how do we connect the home to the standards? That's the work that we are engaging in now with the CLR. We have to make we are making an intentional effort to provide CLR training to all of our staff and all of our leaders, so that when we're working through the academic side of things, we have to connect with every student's home life. So I'm not just talking about any specific ethnic culture. All of our students, we must, and you've heard me say this before, and I'll say it many more times as we go through the training this year. We're using a thing called BAB and CRL, and that is validate, affirm, build, and bridge. So all of us should keep that as a way that we operate as we're doing our instruction. As a teacher, as any personnel in the school, they should validate everybody, every student in a respectful way, validate that they're important, validate that even if they're different, they belong here in school. Affirm. You don't only validate it, but you affirm that these students are welcome in school. We should connect with them, make them feel like they're home, even if they're different. The school might be very different to some people. Build, and that's where we start to build bridges between their home life. So when the teachers are working through these standards, they should be able to use examples about, what about this or what about this, and connecting it to their home life or connecting it to the things that they do outside of school. And then validate, affirm, build, and bridge. So that's just it's a back pocket thing that we should keep in forefront of our mind when we're doing instruction. But that too should become systemic, and we shouldn't I hope we get to a certain point where we don't have to tell everybody to do that. That becomes natural. Validate every student, affirm every student, build bridges with everybody, every student's classroom to their home, and then bridge and bring the student. The student doesn't come as an empty slate. They don't come as a clean slate. The student brings a wealth of information, a wealth of culture. Every student, I'm not talking about ethnic students, every student brings a culture with them to the classroom. And we need to capitalize on that as we go through the learning system.
And you hit on something very important, Mr. Perez, or Superintendent Perez, is that making something relevant to these students will create a better understanding. I remember using basketball terminology or plays to get them to learn about cooperative learning and using basketball paraphernalia as examples. And naturally the students hit right on it because they all love to play basketball. So making things not just culturally, but even family relevance, environmental relevance, living in a small community, a Hispanic community, reservation has its relevance, and people can relate to their experiences in those areas. And so, and you're right, it doesn't matter what ethnic group they're from, or even if they're city or rural, there are some related experiences and events that they can draw from. And thank you for adding that to the mix, Superintendent Perez.
I'd also like to add that we really need to work on getting away from the deficit mindset, that when students come with differences and very different cultures, and again, whatever culture it may be, that it's not a negative. We should be celebrating and capitalizing on what they bring to the classroom and engage them in the standards.
Right. I wanted to touch on two things that Dr. Guy pointed out in the chat. And one of them was that 7G6, which is seventh grade geometry, point 6, is real world mathematical problems involving area and volume and those types of things in geometry. And so, yes, it does lend itself very well to real world problems. The other point that he made was not just relying on textbook problems in order to teach, because that is a very big disservice. And we have allowed the teachers to look at our alignment documents and then look at their texts, and they're finding on their own the misalignment. And so they really understand that there is a misalignment, not only with the standards, but also with the relevancy to some of our students. And so we are encouraging them to use authentic materials and to really, really vet the resources that we already have before using them. And yes,
I would also suggest making those resources available to families and parents.
Yes. So if you'll move to the next slide, please, Dr. Martin. The next page of the DLP for math includes the domain at the top. And so domains vary from kindergarten on, and in kindergarten, they start with counting and cardinality, and then they start with operations and algebraic thinking already at that early age. And they're a little bit different in the upper grades. They go from, numbers and operations and base 10 numbers. They go to number and operations with fractions and ratios and proportions and number systems, expressions, the statistics and probability functions. So as the grade levels progress, the domains also progress. And we do teach that to the teachers during the 2-day session is which domains fit in which grade levels. And it's very surprising to some of them on which ones they might have been teaching that weren't there or weren't supposed to be there. And so just kind of an aha for a lot of our teachers, but it's a very good alignment tool that we have. The next one that we have is the year at a glance. And so just like the vertical alignment document for English language arts, go ahead to the next slide, please, Dr. Martin. This is the year at a glance example for 2nd grade math. And so it shows which standards we'll be teaching quarter 1, quarter 2, and
Go back.
Go ahead and go back one. Thank you. Quarter 1 through quarter 4. And so you'll see like the fluency for addition and subtraction for 2nd grade continues through all 4 quarters. But then there's some that are taught in quarter 1, and then the teachers will use their discretion to spiral those back in throughout the school year. So it's not like they're taught in the beginning and they're forgotten until the end, but the teachers will reteach as necessary, intervene as necessary, and that kind of thing. And they progress from quarter 1 to quarter 4. So those are the ones that they'll be assessed on the quarterly assessments. Go ahead, Dr. Martin. So now we'll move into the examining student work protocol. So we call this ESW. The reason that we do this is to focus all of our assignments, all of our teaching on student learning. This is real-time data to make immediate changes in instruction. So this is done in PLCs with teachers. They learn from others and they support each other throughout these PLC meetings. They analyze assignments for alignment. They analyze assignments for clarity to make sure that the students really, really understand what's being asked of them. And we can do targeted interventions. So these are done every week in PLCs. Every teacher doesn't necessarily present every week, but every week there is an assignment with the examining student work. Most of our schools have changed this coming year from 1 day a week PLCs to 2 days a week for PLCs. So the first day of the week PLC would be examining the student work, looking at what the teacher's expectations are and what happened. And then later on during the week, they'll revisit and they'll say, what did you do differently? How did you change your assignment? And you'll see a little bit more of that here at the end. So the student work needs to be current and relevant. So it can't be work from 2 weeks ago. It needs to be work that is that day. They bring all of their work. They bring not just the top of the class, they bring every single assignment done in their classroom from every single student.
This question about schedule, every school is required to have the PLC time carved out during the week, the work week.
So while for elementaries, while the students are at specials when they're at PE, art, music, then the teachers are in PLCs 1 to 2 days a week. Go ahead. Teachers will initially do this with the instructional coaches in the classroom. We have encouraged all of our school leaders to also be at all PLCs to make sure that they're aware of the assignments, the expectations, and all during PLCs. Our leaders, our administrators are the ones that are setting these expectations. Our instructional coaches are not setting the expectations, but rather they're there to support. So they're the support piece while our administrators are setting the expectations. Eventually, students can also be a part of this in the classroom. As the teachers become more proficient with the protocol, students can do this with work in the classroom as well. So how this is done is the teacher brings a full set of classwork that's aligned to a standard. The teacher presents the assignment by saying, this is what I expected the students to do. This is the standard that was assigned. This is exactly what I've asked them to do. And then the teacher is answering questions for other teachers in the room. So clarifying questions from the other teachers. Then the teacher passes out the work to everyone at the table, and then the teacher sits back and becomes an observer. From that point, they're not able to talk. Being a teacher in that position is very hard, very, very hard, because you want to justify every student's piece of work. You want to say every background piece for every student, and it's not possible. You just have to let the process take over at this point. The instructional coach is the one that facilitates all of this. Then members review the student work based on the presented expectations from the teacher and places the work into piles. So those piles might be basic, proficient, and advanced. Or if you have a bigger class, it might be basic, nearing proficient, proficient, and advanced. And then all of the members discuss why each set is in each pile. Then they discuss what they would do to help students increase their performance in each pile. And then the presenting teacher asks clarifying questions to help them go back to the classroom with the next steps. So the entire time that all of the other teachers are saying how they would help students increase their performance, the teacher that gave the work is taking notes. And then at the end, they're able to ask some clarifying questions.
A lot of qualitative data comes out of that. In other words, not only do you know where students stand as far as proficiency or struggling, but then the teachers should be asking each other, well, how did you teach that? Or maybe we need some more training on this, or maybe that group of students we need to do something a little bit different with. So you get all kinds of information that comes out of the student work, and then they can adjust and make things better for the next week.
Dr. Guy had a question about documentation, and it's coming right up after this. And so it'll be answered in just a second, Dr. Guy. So for timing early on, it's going to take 20 to 30 minutes to get used to the process. And so you might get 1, maybe 2 rounds of examining student work in a PLC at the beginning, but as teachers become familiar with the process, it'll take 10 to 15 minutes. So more teachers will be able to present every PLC. Conducting these frequently builds their skills and helps them to support each other. It might be uncomfortable at the beginning to be vulnerable enough to share work from your classroom, but once you see the value of it and how it builds you as a teacher, then it's very powerful. So using examination of student work, we're going to use the report, which is, there's a picture of it in the next couple of slides, to document and to collect the qualitative data. And then we use that data to make instructional changes, alignment changes, and assignment changes. And for example, one of the first grade standards says to ask and answer questions. So maybe a teacher brought something that had students answering questions, so they didn't hit the whole standard. So when they come back, they can tell us how they changed their assignment. And in this case, it was adding the ask questions part of it. So the teacher just added a little sticky note to ask a question, and then they hit the whole standard. So you go back and we see how that little tiny change changed the way that teacher is going to teach that standard forever. So every single standard the teachers are making ahas on their own teaching and their assignments and their expectations. This is part of the documentation process. And so this one goes into grade level content and the date. And so we can document on our PLCs which teachers presented, which standards were covered, what the assignment looked like, what the expectations were. And then at the bottom of that, you can see that we document how many students were advanced, proficient, nearing, or basic. And then, Dr. Martin, if you go one more page over, there's questions. And so what are the next instructional steps to reach mastery for the standard? And so this is where the teacher can take notes as the other teachers are giving feedback, and they can also ask clarifying questions to their fellow teachers to see interventions, reteaching, enrichment, examine this. And then at the very end of that, Dr. Guy, we will absolutely add to that CLR component. And so if the other teachers determined that the standard and the assignment and the expectations were not culturally relevant or were not inclusive of all students, then that will be we could add that to the bottom of this document.
That should naturally evolve out of
Right.
the TLC.
Right. Are there any questions? I know that was a lot of information.
Can I speak? How much more do we have to go on this?
So that's it. That's it, Dr. Guy.
Okay, board members, this is the core of what it is and the reason why Max is here. We wanted a process of professional instruction that is based upon collective or collaboration between teachers so that they can help each other teach the standards effectively, provide the necessary support to each other, and make sure we stay on target. Otherwise, you have individual teachers working by themselves, not knowing whether or not they're making progress and not being able to tap into the support of other teachers. This is the foundation. This is what we're all about. That's this is the first time I've seen it in this visual manner. So it is very, very important for us to solidify this, make sure it happens, make sure that the school system considers this to be a integral cultural component of how we teach and how children learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Thank you, Dr. Guy. Any other questions or comments from the board before we move on? Okay, let's move on to action items. Action item 8, consideration of approval to dispose of and action asset items. Superintendent Perez, your recommendation.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, I recommend that we approve the disposal of the auction asset items as presented.
Need a motion?
Mayor Shambles makes the motion.
Need a second?
Second, yes.
Discussion?
Mr. Maldonado.
Mr. Maldonado, you wanna?
Yes, of course. Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Board members, Mr. Perez. These items are additional items that were added to the list after the last board meeting. We met with Mr. Lee and some of the department managers, and they identified other assets that we could use in the auction. And so before we sent our list, our final list to the office of the auditors in the state auditor, we wanted to run this list by you, get approval to do that. That means that we'll be running our auction in late July, early August. Are there any
Any
questions?
comments?
Anyone?
Any comments? Mr. Maldonado, does this, it has to be done at an auction? You can't give like employees or staff first shot at some of these vehicles?
That's correct. Yeah, the process is well spelled out by the auditor's office. And so we have to follow that process in order to be fair and equitable for everyone.
Okay, well, darn, I wanted that bald eagle. I have no more questions. Thank you, Mr. Maldonado.
Yes, of course.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Mr. Maldonado. Roll call.
Yes.
Is she asking for roll call? I can't hear her.
Yes.
Pick up.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Action item B, consideration of approval to provide sign-on stipends to newly hired staff. Your recommendation?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, Board, I do recommend that we approve provision for sign-on stipends to newly hired staff.
Okay, need a motion?
What's the stipend? I mean, how much?
Yeah, Board President, would you have Mr. Pettis expand a little bit about it before we do a motion?
You're okay, Mr. President. I'd like to say a few words about this. It's important. Currently, we have some funds available. Currently, we have lots of openings, critical openings in the district. And we felt in our teaching and leadership, one of our goals that we want to invest in recruiting high quality people to the district. We have and have had a lot of challenges with hiring math teachers, special education teachers, counselors, science teachers, and so on. So in looking, taking a look at our current environment, along with those openings, we have neighboring districts who are offering significant sign-on bonuses. They're referring to theirs as sign-on bonuses. For example, Gallup just recently had an advertisement in our local newspaper in which they're giving $5,000 per employee to go work at their district. I know that we've lost at least one person to that district because of that. They also provide housing and other types of incentives to get people to work there. So from that perspective, and they're not the only ones. So
Maintenance as well.
and maintenance. So what we want to do is propose that we provide and recruit people by offering them significant stipends. And then that's for the certified that's a $6,000 stipend. And then for the classified, which are the non-certified, like the maintenance and custodians, teachers, not teachers, cooks and bus drivers. We have,
With 6 gold, like for HVAC. with the certification.
it would be 3,000 for the non-certified.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 3,000 for the non-certified.
And are these sign-on bonuses, are they comparable to other districts you surveyed?
Yeah, so like, for example, Gallup has a $5,000 sign-on per staff member. Ours will be 6. So we got to stay competitive. And in addition, they offer not only the 5,000, but they also have free housing, utilities, and other incentives there. Now we want to be able to at least match or exceed a little bit.
You don't think it'd be a good idea for like a plumber or HVAC? Those are hard positions to come by in a district. I mean, whether it's state, county, they don't pay much to begin with.
Well, I believe that we really don't have much of an option. We're going to be competitive and consider, I'm wondering, those people that retired, would they be eligible for this if they were needed to come back? I know they would be double dipping, but at this point in time, what's the phrase? Beggars can't be choosers.
We had some discussion about this. Mr. Maldonado, do you remember the criteria? Or Ms. Salazar?
Yes, we initially, I'm sorry, sir. We initially had discussed new to the district, but I think that where we're landing is that whenever we can fill a position with a certified teacher, that they would qualify for that stipend, regardless of their prior history with the district. It was really an imperative. Am I correct, Ms. Salazar? Yeah, okay. It was really an imperative for us to address a number of different scenarios so that we can really launch this as a strategic initiative for us, along with other items in our entire recruitment package, which we include, I would say that our benefit package is a little bit richer in terms of how we match or pay for the employer portion of benefits, which is that's a big cost. That is a load off of the employees. So I think this is just one of the important arrows in our quiver to use to recruit and retain quality staff, and especially those that we need to place in high and sensitive issue areas so that we can maintain the standard for the teaching, or everything you just heard from Ms. Sanchez.
A couple of points. First, to address Mr. President, Mr. Sandoval's suggestion is that we do have these highly skilled positions like HVAC, plumbing, electrician. We did have some discussion on that, but I do believe that if we vote on this motion, that we allow ourselves some flexibility and some more time to investigate those three, because I'd like to study that a little bit more, but also give us an opportunity to look at that more carefully and then bring that back to the board for those categories.
Yeah, Mr. Board President, at this point, we are just asking questions, or actually we're having a presentation of the facts behind this action item. And what I would encourage the board members to do is to hold off on any positions or comments that indicates how you feel about it until after we do this, until we do the making the motion and seconding it. Then we can indicate our position on each of these.
Just a comment. When you give out the stipend, let's say $6,000, are you going to give them the $6,000 right away, or are we going to break it up in some way?
Yes. So great question, Mr. President. Here is how we.
We do have that in our board packet, don't we? I mean, I'm looking at mine. How are you going to do it?
We added a little bit to it, Ms. Daly. So if you can allow me to just walk you through how this would work. So let's say the certified teachers, the sign-on bonus that's offered is $6,000. It's payable in equal amounts over 4 semesters, $1,500 per semester. So as an example of what this might look like, a cost for the district, we estimate it just based on the numbers that Ms. Salazar has right now, as an estimate, that this could be available to up to 45 employees or more. So the annual cost for the district would be $135,000. But that would be in the first year, and then the second year, another $135,000. So a total of $270,000 over 2 years, over 4 semesters, no matter where they started. So that's that sign-on bonus for the certified teachers. And then we added the.
Just
yes.
Do they have to sign up for 1 year, 2 years? Is there some sort of agreement that they have to stay with the district for so long, or can they skip after 1 year?
I won't speak for Ms. Salazar, but right now our contracts are year to year. We offer 1 year contracts. And so they sign for that year, and then when they get their letter of intent and agree to come back, then the third semester, second year kicks in. So I don't see us, Ms. Salazar, you can please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see us requiring 2 years, but the catch or the hook is that they don't get it until they complete each semester. So that's the incentive. Does that answer your question, Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'll move on to the classified staff. So here is where we offer that $3,000 sign-on bonus for all classified staff. It includes the same parameters. payable in equal amounts over 4 semesters. That would work out to $750 per employee. We estimate about 30 employees, which would equal about $45,000 for the first year, $90,000 over the second year. So we have a sign-on bonus for certified, a sign-on bonus for classified staff. These are new components that we're proposing. The third stipend is one that's already in place and has been here, where we offer a $5,000 hard to fill stipend. These stipends are paid to certified staff, math, science, special ed, and certified counselors as a incentive to remain with the district. Right now, that stipend is $5,000. It's paid in 2 equal installments during the school year. And right now, that affects about 15 employees, so at a cost of $75,000. This one is already in place. So we have certified teacher, classified staff, and the hard to fill stipend. So in your packet, I provided with, so the total cost, just by the way, annual cost, new cost would be $255,000 if all of these were provided to all of these that we're anticipating, which would be an incredible investment in our certified staff. And this, I would celebrate immensely if we were able to do this. And so this is what we're allocating here as an investment in that recruitment strategy. So here's a couple of scenarios. So we recruit a math teacher to work at Laguna Alcama. So if I'm the math teacher being recruited, here's what we would say to them. So you sign on and get the $6,000 bonus. And because you're also filling in a hard to fill stipend, you get this additional $5,000 bonus. And because you're working at one of our rural schools where we've implemented the rural stipend, you would get an additional at Laguna Alcama, $870. So the first year that employee would earn, on top of their regular salary, $3,000 sign-on bonus, $5,000 hard to fill stipend, and then the $870. So it would be $8,870 above their regular pay rate, which in my estimation is extremely competitive with not only with the state, but also allows it with other districts in the state, but allows us to recruit from elsewhere. In the classified scenario, a cook or a bus driver, for example, is recruited to work and qualifies for the $3,000 bonus. That first year, that employee would earn $1,500 sign-on bonus in addition to their regular pay. And because their home department is within the limits of the city of Grants, even though they, regardless of where they may drive, they don't qualify for that rural stipend. And then the third scenario is an English teacher. So we want to recruit more certified staff, but not necessarily this person doesn't fill the hard to fill role. So we get the $6,000, they work at Los Alamitos, and they get an additional $3,000 sign-on bonus. So these are 3 possible scenarios.
Mr. Board President,
Yes, Dr. Guy, go ahead.
explain the rural stipend. Who is eligible for that?
Would you like me to do that, Mr. Perez?
Yeah. The question was who's eligible for the rural stipend? Mr. Maldonado?
Yeah, there are 4 schools. There's Cebolleta on the outermost. That's the highest, and I can't remember exactly the amount, but it's upwards of $1,200 a year. There's a Cubero Elementary. There's Laguna Alcama, and then Blue Water Elementary. Those are the 4 schools that are beyond a particular perimeter from the district office and therefore qualify for that rural stipend. And it's available to all employees in those particular schools.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a couple of key points here before we go on. So these stipends can be paid for through our CARES money. And the other key element is that we're not committing ourselves to these amounts for long-term in the future. We can do this as long as we can sustain it. But it's one of those kind of projects where we can shut it off also if we need to for financial reasons.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Mr. Board President,
Yes, Dr. Guy?
Would an explanation be provided again regarding hard to fill maintenance positions? I didn't understand the response to Board Member Sandoval's question regarding HVAC, et cetera.
Mr. President, board members, what I would propose is that we approve, if the board's so willing, approve the expenditures as presented, but also allow us time and know that we will look into the skilled maintenance positions, HVAC, plumbing, electrician, and then bring that back to the board at the next board meeting.
Thank you.
We're ready for a motion?
Ms. Garshambo, I make a motion to approve the action item.
Okay, need a second?
Keon Sandoval, second.
Any more discussion? Roll call?
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly?
Yes.
Yes.
There's 3 votes for yes. Motion
You got a
passes.
majority.
Motion passes. Consent agenda, Superintendent Perez, your recommendation?
Sir, Mr. President, Board, I recommend that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion?
Garshambo approves, makes the motion to approve.
Keon Sandoval, second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes. Superintendent's report, Mr. Perez?
Yes, sir. So, Mr. President, Board, a couple of things. Before I go on, I just wanted to make a mention that we do know we have some heating issues at it's gotten really hot lately. So Mesa View, Laguna Acoma, and Los Alamitos have had some really hot classrooms. I just wanted to let everybody know that help is on its way. So we began working on those today, and we'll have TLC at Laguna Acoma High School tomorrow and fixing those. We've identified the issues, and we should have those HVACs and the cooling systems up and running very soon. Mr. President, we had the Equity Council meeting just this last week, and let's do this week. So I guess very recently we had the Equity Council meeting, and so the Equity Council is we're just sorting out all of the things that were required by the state. There's another survey that we have to do, and certain things that are required by the state, but we do have a good group, a good representation of, it's actually guided by the state. The membership is guided by the state, but we have a mix of community members, teachers, parents of students with disabilities, Acoma, Laguna, Navajo rep. And we are looking forward to having our Equity Success Coordinator coming on board. Miss Valencia Rushmeyer will be starting mid-July, Monday. She'll be here for a week starting Monday, and then she'll come back in July when her contract actually starts. But she will be taking a lead with the Equity Council, and we'll continue all of the work there. And as we begin to produce the work, we'll be bringing that to the board and presenting to how the things are going there with that equity council. The only other thing I had was our audit has begun. We had a meeting yesterday. Yesterday was our audit entry. So we had our committee get together and talk to the auditors as they come in. They've been asking for a lot of documents, as that's typical of starting the whole audit process, or business and finance departments have been very busy with them. HR has been producing documents, as well as the superintendent's office. So we're beginning another cycle of the audit. That procedure will go on. We have a timeline. We're looking at, the goal is to get that all accomplished in October, November, so that we can have that wrapped up and presented to the board, submitted to the state auditor, and try and stay in line with that the expected timeline. So I just wanted to let you all know that we are continuing with Manning and Associates. They're very, as you know, very strict auditors, and we like that. We like to rather be scrutinized carefully by the auditors than to find out that we made some kind of a mistake down the road somewhere. So that's just a little update on some of the bigger things going on right now. The only other thing I have, Mr. President and board, is we want to propose a board training date in July. And I think the Wednesday is the 21st. And if you could just at least put that, think about that, put on your calendar for July 21st, Wednesday. And if at all possible, if we could do a whole day, that would be ideal. I know some of you are working, but giving you some advance notice, just let Ray know if there's any possibilities there, and then we'll lock it up and then get the presenters and the facility and everything. So July 21st, board training retreat.
Yeah. So, thank you, Mr. Perez. Announcements are there, so look at them. Future agenda items, get with me and Superintendent Perez. Adjournment, need a motion to adjourn.
So do you send the book?
Need a second,
Garshamba second.
roll call.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes. Meeting adjourned at 7:01. Thank you, everyone. Good night.